So, though my throat is a little itchy, but nevertheless, let's get to it. Just saying. We have a choice.
Every once in a while, I like to go what I call minimalist camping.
What?
It's basically the type of camping where you only take what is absolute.
What? Whoa. I heard something camping.
While I like to go what I call minimalist camping. It's basically the type of camping where you only take what is absolutely necessary to survive.
Nah, Mo. I'm not clocking with it.
It's definitely not for everyone.
Oh yeah,
I see it as a fun challenge. I mean, oftentimes I won't even take a tent, just a tarp to lay on the ground.
Wow.
I did exactly this over one June weekend. I was alone and in the middle of the forest. Now, it wasn't like a campsite. I usually try to stay away from those. I much prefer a completely uninhabited part of the forest.
Wow.
Usually what I'll do is park in some random spot on the side of this forest road. I'll then walk out at least a mile and camp where I'm stood. Or sometimes if I find a small body of water, I'll camp next to that. Anyway, it was the first night of this specific trip. By this point, it was already dark. I was laying down next to a fire I created with a small fire starter kit that I had brought when it started to rain. Now, again, I didn't have a tent. I would not be able to last the night in the rain. To make things worse, I checked the weather for the weekend the night before, and no rain was shown.
Come on, bro. What's it called? Meteorologist? Bruh, sometimes they be spot on, sometimes they be half on, and sometimes they be way the hell off. Like this one comedian, I forgot his name, but he was like, I hate the meteorologist because he says asinine shit. You know, he'll be like, the temperature is 32, but it feels like 16. Then it's 16, it's not 32.
I guess that just goes to show how inaccurate those predictions can be. It was only sprinkling, but I knew if it got worse, I'd just have to call the whole trip and go home. Of course, it did get worse. It started absolutely pouring out. And to make things even worse still, thunder and lightning both started going off nearby. So I packed up what little I had and started jogging back to my car through the dark forest, only lit by a dim flashlight I had in my hand and the occasional lightning flash. Fortunately, I made it back to my parked car relatively quickly. In order to see anything in front of me, I had to put the windshield wipers on their max setting. I had about 10 to 12 miles on this secluded and narrow 2-lane road in the forest with no streetlights before I would make it back to a main road. I was only about 2 miles in when I rounded a corner and saw a Subaru with a small trailer parked diagonally across the road. The way in which it was parked completely blocked me from getting by. I couldn't even go off the road to get around it because there were trees on either side. I wasn't able to see inside the car, so I turned on my high beams. This revealed a man slouched over in the driver's seat, his head uncomfortably resting on the steering wheel. From the looks of it, he was completely unconscious. Just then, lightning struck. The flash revealed another man just out of the view of my headlights. He was outside, laying face down on the road in some puddles. He too looked unconscious. An immediate sense
It's a trap. It's a setup. It's a cluck. It's a cluck up. Set up. Clucked. Cluck up. I don't know. Or it's a cluck set. I don't know. I'm just trying, I'm just saying. It's a setup, but it's clucked at the same time. It's a trap. To get out of, I can't do it. My throat is itchy. I can't really, you know what I mean? I can't really
Unease overwhelmed me. The scene was too perfect. I mean, the car and its trailer just so happened to block the entire road after a bad accident,
I'm saying.
and everyone involved became unconscious. I was seeing a lot of red flags. I had always heard stories of people playing dead in the middle of the road as a way to lure unsuspecting people out of their cars for some sinister purpose. I decided I wanted no part of this. I began reversing to find a spot where the trees gave me enough room to make a three-point turn. My eyes kept darting back and forth from my rearview mirror to the Subaru. Just when I got back far enough, I turned my head back towards the Subaru one last time, and my blood ran cold. The man that was in the driver's seat and the man that was lying on the road were now both running full speed towards my car. Meanwhile, more men were jumping out of the trailer and proceeding to do the same.
Oh my God.
There had to have been at least 5 or 6 guys all running towards me. I was still completing the turn. When they got close enough, they started aggressively yanking on the door handles. But I had them locked. I threw it in drive and barreled out of there. I was forced to take a longer route back home. For that drive, I swear I had my eyes on the rearview mirror, checking to see if I was being followed, more than I had them on the road in front of me. When I did get home, and had a second to calm down, I called the police. Though, they didn't find anyone, or even anything, matching the descriptions I gave. And I'm not sure anything's gonna come of it. I didn't get a license plate number, and it was too rainy to make out any facial features. Something I did take note of, though, is from what I could see, they didn't have any weapons. Rather, they had stuff like ropes, handcuffs, and tape. You'd think people doing this would just want to rob you, and admittedly that's probably how it goes for most of these cases. But I truly believe this time was different. I don't know what they wanted to do, but something tells me it was worse than being robbed.
Yeah, they want to get in that ass. In all holes of your body.
The house I grew up in was very large. My bedroom was on the 2nd floor, and its window overlooked the driveway and neighborhood street it was attached to. At the time, my bed was placed almost right up against this window. I was around 15 or 16 when this happened. Both of my parents were out of town on some vacation, and I have no siblings, so this meant I was home alone. As a teen, I tended to stay up late, sometimes doing homework, but oftentimes browsing social media or texting friends. It was somewhere around 4 a.m., and I was doing just that while lying in bed. Now, I have to mention, it had been raining with the occasional distant sound of thunder for pretty much the whole night, and being on the 2nd floor, it was pretty loud. But even this didn't drown out the sound of what I can only describe as slight knocks on glass. Like I mentioned earlier, my bed was right up against the window. The sound was right next to my ear, so naturally I assumed it came from the window. To be completely honest, it sounded very different from the rain hitting the window. But I told myself I was on the 2nd floor. It had to have been the rain. I mean, what else could it have been? So I sat there and completely brushed it off. Fast forward 30 minutes, and I was still awake lying in bed on my phone. All of a sudden, I heard the all too familiar humming sound made when the garage door to the house is opening.
Oh.
I was more confused than anything. It was 4:30 a.m., and here I am lying in bed while the garage door is being randomly opened. I figured something with the electricals must have been glitching because of the storm, so I got up.
Stop doing that. Please stop doing that. Stop assuming shit. Stop brushing shit off. You know what it is. You know exactly what it is. So do something about it. Grab your Adidas and do what you need to do. I can't really do like too much of that because my throat is kind of
to bed to go and shut it again. I made it about halfway down the stairs when I stopped. In the corner of the kitchen, I could see some figure wearing all black and crouched down.
Oh my God.
But I couldn't tell if what I was seeing was real. I stood there for probably 20 more seconds, waiting for the next lightning strike to provide enough light to see. My heart sank. It was very clearly a person, but I couldn't tell if they were looking in my direction or not. I decided rather than making a run for it, I'd play it off like I forgot something upstairs. I patted my pockets as if I was looking for my phone and turned around to go back up the stairs. When I got to my room, I shut the door, locked it, and pushed my dresser in front of it. Immediately after, I called my dad. On what had to have been the last ring, he picked up in a groggy voice. I sternly asked him if anyone was expected to show up to the house, because someone was downstairs. Sounding more concerned this time, he said, No one's supposed to be in the house. He told me to stay on the line while he called the cops using my mom's phone. I didn't hear anything in the 7 or so minutes it took police to arrive. But to be fair, it was still raining really hard, which drowned out a good amount of the noise. As police were searching the house, they found a grimy-looking man hiding behind a set of boxes in the basement. In his possession was one of our large kitchen knives and one of those garage openers you put in your car. As it turns out, my dad's car was broken into while he was at work a few months back. And included in what was stolen was, of course, one of our garage openers. We never found out who was responsible, but I guess now we know. Though how we actually found which garage it went to, we have no idea. We also don't know what he had planned to do that night while I was home alone.
Again, he was gonna get in that ass.
This happened outside of an old house I used to live in 8 years ago. The house was a few miles outside of a small town with very little people. And because of the location, the house had no neighbors whatsoever.
Wow.
You could say it was in the middle of nowhere.
Jesus.
Because it pretty much was. In front of the house was a road, and in the back was a forest that continued for miles on end. And it was empty. There were no trails, no one was living there, no reason really for anyone being there. I was 26 at the time, and was really into filming and photography. I particularly liked night photography. One night, there was a thunderstorm outside in the distance. The air was humid, but it wasn't raining. Being into photography and having a pretty decent camera, I thought I'd try to capture some of the lightning. I needed everything around me to be as dark as possible for the best shot, so I moved the camera set about back behind the house where there was less light, specifically in a spot where I'd have a clear view of the skyline. The house had this fairly small metal fence with a gate, which I guess marked the backyard. Only about 50 feet from the gate was the tree line of the forest. I sat there inside the fence for maybe a good hour and got some pretty good shots of the lightning strikes. There was almost no wind, and the only sound you could hear was the occasional thunder rumbling. While sitting there, I felt the urge to relieve myself, so I opened the gate and walked over towards the tree line. I was standing there for maybe 30 seconds. I was almost done when I heard something.
My ass.
I couldn't make it out at first, but I remember I got a strange feeling about it. It did not sound natural. I stood still looking into the forest for a few seconds, but I couldn't see anything.
What are you doing?
The clouds had moved more towards the house by this point, and it had now begun to drizzle. I turned around towards the house as I had to get my camera equipment inside to keep it from getting wet. But just as I turned around, I heard the sound again.
Oh my God.
This time it sounded like leaves rustling under footsteps. Again, I stopped for a second.
I'm about to chuck this shit. I'm about to, I be ready. I be so ready to go into these stories and just slap the shit out of these people.
Thought I had actually heard breathing now. Like, really close to me. My eyes were still adjusting to the darkness, but as another lightning strike lit up the sky, I could see for a brief second. Some figure was stood perfectly still just feet away from me, slightly behind a tree branch. It was just looking into the ground. The only thing I remembered was that I ran, jumped the fence, and went into the house so quickly that I didn't even notice I'd scratched my leg pretty bad in the process. That's when I realized I left all of my camera equipment outside in the rain. So I forced myself to go back out there. The whole time, I kept my eyes fixed on the tree line, looking for any movement. I grabbed the camera and backed into the house before locking every single door and window. That night, I didn't sleep very well. A few hours after I'd gotten into bed, I again heard the sound. Footsteps, this time walking around the outside of the house.
Jesus.
I didn't move at all. I stayed as still as I could. Come morning, and that was it. Nothing else happened. I never heard or saw anything again after that. I still have no idea what I saw that night. No one should have been out there. I mean, again, all of this happened in basically the middle of nowhere. This was by far the scariest thing that I experienced in the 20 or so years I lived in that house.
I bet you he knows where you live now. Hey, that's all I'm saying about that shit. I don't understand why people just, like, whenever in a cluttered situation, I don't understand why people just say, like, oh, it's nothing. It's probably nothing. Oh, it was just, let me just brush it off. I wonder what was going to happen if he didn't run away or if he didn't get caught. Oh, I'm just a little boy. What you talking about? He don't get in that ass. No condom necessary. Blood everywhere. And you can do all the yelling and screaming you want because it's a thunderstorm outside and it's strong as shit and it's loud as hell. Nobody gonna hear you. And I'm gonna need y'all to check the checklist too. You was outside for what, 30 seconds, give or take, peeing? And you heard something in the bushes, in the woods, and you did it immediately, zip. Somebody gonna cluck your ass up, that's all I'm saying. Keep it cool, keep it classy, and I love you, stay happy. My family.